Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa Life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. I am so thrilled to introduce to you our special guest, Robin Edgar. Robin has been a financial advisor for over 28 years and has helped thousands of people with their financial plan. She's been a successful entrepreneur and has joined her partners in developing Keystone Strategy Group with the purpose of helping businesses with top-line growth in a healthy and sustainable way. Now that sounds like spa life to me. Welcome to the show, Robin.
Thank you so much, Diane. It's great to be here.
Oh, well, through your experience as, a financial, advisor, especially in today's business climate, looking for ways for people to have a deeper, more significant relationship with their clients, not just to close the sale, but to have, to retain them and have that long-term relationship. Has that been something that has been, kind of your culture and the way that you've done business, something personal, or how is it that that's been your philosophy and how you do business?
Yes, I think as a female, 28 years ago, there weren't as many females in that industry. And so I was kind of, in my 20s and really kind of venturing off onto something that I didn't even realize that would be something for me until a mentor encouraged me to do that. And I think just naturally, the way I have built my business, now in hindsight, I come back and realize that so much of that has really been about the personal relationships and the authenticity of the relationships and all of that. Whereas traditionally in the financial services arena, people would tend to just focus on the product and the knowledge and the background and all of the details that you get. And I think that's, I owe a lot of the success on what I've had in the business to, I think the deep relationships that I've created, and that kind of has morphed over into, everything I do and everything I'm trying to do now with Keystone Strategy Group.
Now, I know with Keystone that, you focus on solutions for everyone, whether they're solutions, or Fortune 100 companies, to really utilize this impact of communication to affect, their top line. Does it change at all whether or not you're focusing on the solopreneur versus the Fortune 100? Or is it a similar philosophy that, is really just the foundation that supports everybody?
Well, I think the foundation of it is definitely the same. I think the mindset behind the solopreneur is that the solopreneur is wearing a lot of hats. All of us that are solopreneurs, we wear multiple hats, and we have to take those hats off, put a different one on. That's happening multiple times during the day. And I really think that's where a lot of the momentum can really hurt the solopreneur, is because they're really trying to be and wear so many different hats and fulfill all of the roles that in a larger company or in a corporate environment, you've maybe got somebody that's working on the finances, and then you've got a sales department, you've got a marketing department, you've got these different departments. So the issues are still there, and the issues can be similar but different. We find in a lot of small, medium, even large size companies, getting people into leadership development. That's the number one thing that we hear from larger companies is, I've been here a while. I know kind of what's going on. But we don't really have anybody in the trenches that can kind of come up and rise up into a leadership position to take over. And I think that's the same that entrepreneurs have. A lot of baby boomers have built successful businesses. And what's happening is they don't really have anybody in any succession plan in place. They don't really know, how do I get to that next level? How do I train those people? Because a lot of us, sometimes it'll take 2 or 3 people is what we're finding out to replace that solopreneur that has basically built a business over 20, 25, 30 years. They've just learned how to do all of that. And it's really hard. You generally can't find one person that can do that and replace you. It's usually 3 people that you probably need, or 4 people to actually replace you sometimes. So the issues are the same. What hat are we wearing? How can we help you get to that next level? And so we find it's the same, but there's obviously a lot of differences depending on what size company and how many staff you have.
Right. Well, I really appreciate that distinction because, I was just thinking about what you were saying that about the entrepreneur wearing so many different hats, especially when we start our business. And when it comes to replacing ourselves, it really does get broken down into those different aspects. And I know that a lot of this is because you're designing your life and your business that really looks at this bigger picture and really supports people. Although we find that a lot of people, they live their life by default. They're just kind of letting things happen. And maybe it gets to the point where it's critical, where they need to replace someone yesterday, and they haven't been looking ahead and really taking this all into consideration. So what are some of the components that you utilize either personally in your life or business that allows you to design your life where you can actually experience more of that spa life, of having that balance as you're doing the journey?
Yeah, one of the first things I talk about with all of my clients is begin with the end in mind. I mean, we've heard that from the Covey books, going way back. One of my favorite books, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that, I read early on, and it just really resonated with me. And I think that in financial planning and in any kind of business, trying to get people to paint me a picture. I always say, paint me a picture out here of what your perfect spa life or what your life would look like if it could be there. And a lot of times people just haven't thought of that. And that's why I love what you're doing here, is because people need a reminder that they need to have a plan. They need to be thinking ahead about what that looks like. And every decision we make, whether it's financial or whether it's business or add someone to the team, should really be about what is the end in mind that I'm really trying to reach. And if we can get people there so that they can do what they love, and this is what the stage of life I'm in is, a lot of times we have to do what we have to do to make a living, and to make ends meet. What if we could do really what we want to do, get paid for doing what we want to do versus what we have to do? That whole mindset, if I can get people, financially secure enough to do that, it's just like this big aha moment, as I call it, for people to say, oh my gosh, if at 50 I could do this, and I could do this and I could do that, and I didn't really have to worry about doing this other stuff, wouldn't that be great? So whether they're an entrepreneur and a small business owner, or whether they're working for someone else, they really should be thinking at all times about, what is that perfect spa life? What is that end? And what I find is people that do that actually love working, and they continue working. They're healthier in every way. And so I try to get them to really focus on what is a succession plan. And that may not be words that you use or that other people use, but what is our succession plan in life, whether we're here for a long period of time or whether we need to eventually let other people come in and take over parts of this. We should be thinking about that, really from the beginning of our career, not wait until we're 50, 55, or 60, which is what I find a lot of people really do, is they don't design their life around what I want to do. They design it around what I have to do to get by to the next day.
Right. This is such a critical conversation to have, because a lot of times when people, when things aren't working in their life, this is when they start looking at and starting to realize, once, people like you or I who are coaching people and having them have these awarenesses, right? It's like, until you actually are aware of what you're doing, you're not in autopilot trying to be in survival mode going, why is this not working that I've tried a million times? To really look at, what are those things that you're consciously creating, and knowing the direction you're going in, making those course corrections. And I think it's so important to have that clarity and that vision, because on especially some of those days where, it may be a few more of those have-tos that are happening, depending on what stage you are in your business, it can feel like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, it's just, it can feel overwhelming. And so to really have that clear picture and to have that plan as well, that is also clear, it can make such a distinction of saying, you know what, as I move through this, this is the end game. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And this is, also part of that purpose, right? Like, what is our purpose in what we're doing? And I know that there is an aspect that, I have in my business and you have as well, in terms of, giving 10% in your business. So, share a little bit more about, how you've designed this aspect in your business, and how you're making a bigger difference in the world with this.
Yeah, I mean, I've always done a lot of volunteer work and nonprofit work over my career. You know, that's part of networking or connecting, whatever we want to call it, especially when we own our own businesses, to get out there, to let people know who we are as a person. Going back to the beginning of the conversation of, you know, it's not just about tracking numbers. It's about really letting people know not how brilliant I am in maybe my career and my product offerings, but really what kind of person am I? And I've had numerous people that have come to me and brought their financial plan to me, and they've never even sat down and talked with me, but they've served with me on a board of directors, or they've experienced working with me in some kind of nonprofit arena. And they're like, I just know that you're a good person. And I know from your, you know, from talking to other people that they have been very happy with you. And so they didn't really need to go through the same kind of traction that other people have gone through to make that decision. And that's when you kind of reflect back and realize that, you know, as I say, it's the tongue in the shoe, not the tongue in the mouth. A lot of times that people really need to be focused on is, you know, your kids and everyone they're watching what you're doing, not just what you're saying. And there's a lot of people out there that talk a good talk, but then they're, you know, what they're actually doing and how they're living and the way they're walking isn't necessarily matching up with the way they're talking. So a long time ago, you know, I really implanted in myself giving back of 10%. I specifically set aside every time I get paid, 10% specifically goes aside for my giving account. And that money then sits there until I see a need, a purpose, some kind of project or organization that I really feel called to give to. And the minute I feel called, and you and I experienced some of this with eWomen and other things that we've been involved with, where to be able to just stand up and say, yep, I can give this amount of money because it's already there, it's already been allocated, I don't have to consciously think about it, is so refreshing and so just life-changing. Because it really allows me to really make quick decisions when I feel in the moment and someone really, really is in need of help. I already have those assets sitting there. And I do the same thing for a family account. So I take 10% and I also put it in a family checking account. And all of that money is basically spent on doing family things with my kids, my grandkids, my spouse. You know, people like to say they have a vacation account and this type of thing, but you know, all of that works, but I've consciously put 10% of everything I make into a family account. So I'm really giving back not only to outside organizations, but to actually, you know, having family time, because as you and I both know, time goes really fast. And those experiences are what your kids and your grandkids will remember. They're not going to remember, as I say, a cool pair of jeans or a cool pair of shoes or whatever. It may seem important at the time, but, you know, experiences and things that you get to do with your family, I think are a lot more, you know, going to be memories that will outlast you long after we're gone.
Yeah, you know, I just find this to be it's so inspiring for me because, you know, I live my life in this way as well. And so I love to have our listeners hear, you know, a complementary perspective about how you incorporate this in your life and how this design is so important, not just for the structure in place, but for the life that it creates for you, about how you want to live your life, what kind of impact you want to have, how does it affect your family, that it's not just about, but you, especially from a financial you know, planning perspective, so many times people think of that in terms of, well, that's set aside for retirement and someday, or, you know, this is so that my business can run. But I love that you have such a global aspect to people's life about the impact of how it affects their experience of their family and the impact of how they can serve other people. And looking at that totality, I think really adds to the purpose and value of why are we actually here and what is it that we're doing. And I love that relational, you know, aspect that you have with people and bringing that to light. So I just want to applaud you for that, being different in that way and standing in a way where, you know, so many times people can look at financial advisors as being so black and white and it's this, and you're only looking at the bottom line and the numbers, and how you look at the person and the totality of their life. I find it very inspiring.
Thank you. And it is different, you know, as I said before, you know, when I started out 28 plus years ago, I didn't set out to be different. I just set out to be the best version of myself that I could. And what I found is as my nurture, as our bank codes and all of that you and I know, high nurture is not necessarily what you might find in a lot of people that do what I do. And yet that is just naturally where I was, because that's what's important to me. So I can see that in reflecting back that the strong client base that I have is really part of my family. I mean, most of them consider me in my family. They get the Christmas cards. They know all of my family. They know my grandkids' names. They know all of that. And it's created a whole different lifestyle for me. When you were talking, I was thinking about, I had an opportunity to coach with, a real high-end coach, and paid quite a bit of money for that. But by doing that strategy that I'm doing and really having an end in mind purpose, I took some of that money that was in one of my accounts that was set aside for growth and personal growth and development. And I was able to make a decision when I really was at a moment in time where I knew that I needed to make some changes. I knew I needed some help in getting to that next level. And I knew that I just couldn't do it on my own. Very smart, very wise in what I do, very balanced person, not issues, but a lot of people just don't realize that they always need, I believe, one of the number one things that we could do for our kids, our grandkids, and, everybody in our business world, encourage them to get some kind of a coach to help them really set the path forward of where do I want to be? When do I want to be there? How do I get there? Who are the people that I need to really surround myself? We're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And yet a lot of people spend time with family, which is great. But a lot of people, if you're entrepreneurial and your family or your friends are not, what I experienced in my life was I had friends that weren't as out there as I was as far as the goals and objectives. And what they kept doing is every time I'd take a step forward, they'd kind of come in and not be negative, but kind of undercut and be like, why are you doing that? Or why are you doing this? And over time with coaching and people kind of pointing out things that I wasn't able to see myself, I realized that what they were doing is, as I was growing and moving into my spa-like life and into what I had for my goals and objectives, they were trying to really pull me back because they could feel me growing away from them. And I think that happens a lot in our families, in our friends, and the people that we hang around with is if we find ourselves growing. And I think as females and women especially, we kind of want everybody to kind of be one big family and everybody stay, cohesive in what we're doing. And when that starts to happen, people have very strange reactions, and they tend to then start vocalizing because they don't really understand what's going on, and you might not either. But with coaching, what I realized is, I really needed to have a separation and find a new tribe, and not that I let them go, but I had to find a new tribe that I was really focusing on spending some time with throughout the week that was helping me to really, really encourage where I was going and the path that I was on. And that encouragement was important, and not instead of me all day by myself. I'm encouraging myself. I know where I'm going. And then, you go out to dinner with someone, or you get home, or whatever you're doing, and you get pulled back 2 steps forward, 1 step back, it kind of felt like. And that's where coaching and all of that mindset stuff that I went through, and having the ability and the finances to be able to do that, was a total game changer for me in helping me to elevate even to the next level above where I was at.
Right. This is just so important. Robin, I know our listeners are just leaning into this in the resonance that they're having around this, because, for entrepreneurs who've surrounded themselves with people that, aren't their cheerleaders and aren't people that are really supporting them, it can feel like an added burden and added, anchor, if you will, in their business. And, it can also feel challenging because, especially if they're like your close family and friends, these are people who you love and you want their support. And it can be very discouraging as you're moving through in life and having that happen. And I absolutely 100% agree with having a coach and mentor. And even though you and I do this for people, we still need that elevated person, the next step that can see the things that we don't see. And it's one of the reasons I love the quote from Les Brown, where he talks about you can't see the big picture when you're in the frame. Right.
Yeah,
and we can see
exactly.
so many things for other people, but when you're in it, we have our blind spots. We have those things that, maybe we haven't experienced yet. And that's what other people bring to us in such a way. And it's not a sign of weakness to reach out to someone. It is such a sign of strength that you're willing to be vulnerable, to not know what the next step is, but be willing to step into and step up as part of that. And the fact that you not only recognize that and have that as part of your practice, Robin, but that you also have created the accounts. And this is part of that, bigger picture financing, to actually set aside that when you need that support, that you don't have to have the story of, where's the money coming from, or, I don't know how I'm going to afford that, where you are being very proactive with this. And this is actually part of a business strategy to allocate these different methods that, looking forward, and you can get support by a coach like you to be able to let these are some of those steps, 3-4 steps down the road that you can start preparing for, and you can have those things in place. So it's not one of those like, oh my God, I need this yesterday and I didn't plan for it. That's where the stress and the overwhelm and all these things come into play with it. And so I just think it's fabulous that you're doing that. And I know part of it too that comes up for people is that sense of busyness, that they feel like, God, how can I do all the things that I'm doing? And we know that that's just an addiction that people have, and that it's part of the words and the mentality that is coming around that. How is it for you to, kind of get past that, to be able to really be clear on how you're focusing your time in your day? And I know you got some fabulous tools and things that you use for that as well.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to, when I started my career, to actually have some sales managers that really gave me some tools that absolutely changed the way I started the business. Because a lot of times we don't know, there's so much to do in this so busy of life, as you say. We all say we're so busy, but what are those things that make the cash register ring? And one of the tools early on that I got introduced to, that I still use to this day, and I use with all of my coaching clients, no matter if they're, a CEO, or whether they're a solopreneur, or they would just do MLM out of their house, whatever level they are, is a 25-point system. And basically what we do is we work together to develop a plan for what are the daily activities that I do throughout my day. What does that consist of? And then how many points should I assign to each of those activities? Now, every day I need 25 points. So for instance, if I make a sale, that might be 5 points. So if I got up in the morning and I made 5 sales by 11 o'clock, theoretically, I could take the day off and go to the spa or go play golf or whatever it is I love to do, because I was really achieving those goals. But what a lot of people do is they come in, they read their emails, they do all of these things. They look in our industry, in the financial, I could spend the whole day looking at what the market is doing, look at where things are happening, reading articles about different industries, and I could honestly feel very, very productive. I mean, that's good information for me to have in my head and to be able to share with people down the road, but it does not make the register ring. Those activities that make the register ring, and I very simplified in the way I talk to people about that, because that is very critical. And if we start to really recognize what those activities are, and we're actually tracking those on a daily basis, and we're saying, who did we call? What was the conversation? A cold call, maybe 1 point, a warm call, maybe 2 points, an appointment with someone. If I get an appointment, that's 3 points. Those are what I use for me in my business, but every business is different. If you're in marketing, it's going to be different. If you're, not in sales and you're leading a team of people, that's going to be totally different. But what is it that I need to focus on? And I really can't hang up my hat at the end of the day until I've hit that. And so it really helps me to begin my focus in the morning, when most of us have most energy, when we're really able to focus more. I mean, at least historically, when you look at things, the morning is the time. And yet I see so many people that want to be successful that are taking the first 2, 3, even 4 hours of their day, kind of returning calls and reading Facebook or reading their emails or doing, whatever it is that they're doing. And then they get to noon and it's like, I haven't really done anything that's moving the needle in my business. And so once again, I think it's going back to just really fundamental basics, no matter the technology has changed dramatically in the last 28 years. And I think that really can be a detriment to people sometimes, because most of the business that you're going to really do relationship wise and deep business that will be recurring revenue for all of you is not going to be done because of, you know, an email that you sent or a tweet that you sent or some kind of, you know, electronic communications. I look at that as more of a way to really communicate effectively with people once they're in my tribe and once they're doing business with me, as far as helping them stay on track, but it doesn't help you build the business out of the gate. Now, that's my personal opinion, and there's people out there that could be listening that would disagree, and it could be the case depending on your business. But this has been a tool that I have used since day one, and it really, really helps me to focus in on what are those things I need to do every day to be successful. And when I lay my head on the pillow at night, that I can go, wow, I had a great day because I got X number of things done. And then that's where the ramping, as you know, it's how many seeds you're planting along the way. Every single day, you've got to plant those seeds so that you can get, you know, the crop down the road and that you see the blooms of that coming up, because you can't plant and harvest, you know, all in the same day. And a lot of people in sales try to do that, and it just doesn't work.
All right. You know, I love that because, you know, it kind of gamifies, you know, talk about how can you make your work fun and, you know, what is the measure of what's good enough and the amount of time and how you can do that. And I'm sure that can change, like you said, for each business to have, but you got to have some sort of measurement to be able to know, like, you know, was today a successful day? Did I do those things that, you know, make the cash register ring and have that happen? One of the things I like to do is I have like, this little jar that I've got pennies in them. And so every time I make a call, I'll take one of the pennies out. And so my day is not complete until the pennies are all out. And I have a certain number of them that I choose for that day of what I'm doing. But I love the variants where you kind of give different scores or different things, because obviously there's certain activities, making a sale, which is what's going to fuel your company, giving that more value. So I love the funness and having that with you and to be able to do that. And so I can see how you can embrace that as you know, as an entrepreneur and a business owner. I'm wondering as well, as far as, you know, for people that have sales teams and they may not be as motivated, you know, in certain ways to do things. And so how is it that people can have their sales force be focused to do those critical activities? Because they could probably justify, oh, I did this, this, and this, but it's not the critical things that they need to focus on to make it happen. So what is it that you are teaching and helping people with their sales force to have this very specific laser focused on what needs to happen?
You know, we're using this at all levels of a company. So whether you have a sales team of 10 people, you know, if you sit down with them and they each have their action list for the day, and they all develop their own list of here's what I need to do to be successful and to hit my metrics. And then you have that report where it's saying, which of these did I do? How did I get to the 10 points? What happens is the individual has now a set of kind of running, you know, skis or whatever you want to call them. It's the running board that they can get on to say, okay, now I know specifically what I need to do. Because sometimes we think that people know specifically, okay, we need to sell, you know, X number of dollars of widgets or whatever it is. But what are the things that actually make that happen? Because not every day is filled with sitting down in front of, you know, an owner of a company that's buying widgets. It's about the calls, it's about the networking, it's about the follow-up, it's about all of those things, and all of those things really are important. So this system really allows a company, whether you are a manager that has customer service support staff, or whether you have a sales team, or whether you're just 3 or 4 people on a team in a small company, you can design this plan and everybody sits down and says, here are the things that Joe needs to do to be able to be successful in this role. So we take their job description, we take everything they do, we put these actions down on one sheet of, assign a point value to them, and then we allow them to kind of track their day and say, when they have days that maybe didn't go the way they thought, they're actually self-realizing that. And it's really a helpful way for people to feel empowered into what are those things that my boss or the owner of the company is really expecting me to do. And it's not a job description so much. It's about these are the things that really move the ball down the field for all of us. And when that isn't happening for someone, it's easy for them then to go back and say, okay, now we can see by your list of what you did yesterday that this is why we're not getting traction in this specific area, because maybe we need to pull back and focus more on these other two areas, and we need to add those to the sheet. So it becomes a very interactive way for an entire team to really know what are all the other team members doing, and what I do affects what someone else does. Because if I'm in sales and then I'm turning that account over to a customer service department, how do I really know that that customer service department is doing everything they can to move the ball down the field, to increase the sales, to make sure that customer service is right, to make sure that we're aware of customer service problems so that we can go back and revisit it. So I have found that it doesn't matter how big or how small the company is or what position you have in the company. This simple tool, and it is a simple tool. Sometimes, as we know, even in BANKCODE, the genius is in the simple.
Yes.
Right. Everything we do kind of needs to be, how can we simplify the situation and the solutions and the process that we need to use so that everyone feels empowered and is successful in whatever position they have, whether it's customer service or CEO. We all have things that we need to do that help the company move forward.
Right. I love this tool. I love the fact that, one, that it is simple and it's clarity, right? I mean, how is it that you can really tell someone that they're doing a good job or have no way if it's just ambiguous, like go out and prosper kind of thing, right? It's like, what are those things? And there can be a lot of assumptions that happen, especially from, the owner of the company who built it themselves, and they know, here's what I did and then I'm doing this and now I'm doing that. But bringing people on and having them to really, not only have part of that shared vision, but to know what are those tangible steps that they can be doing and to have that immediate feedback. I mean, it's either they're doing it or they're not, and to see the difference in their day in being able to do that. And I mean, I have been guilty of that myself, where I can see the days where, those pennies didn't get moved that much, and I let distraction or I let, things that come up happen. But I have the awareness by just looking at it that I allowed that to happen, or that I made a conscious decision that I was going to be doing something different about it. But that measurement is there so that I know, okay, what are we doing differently? And you can just continually, like you talk about moving the ball down the court. You can't move it down if you aren't doing the strategies and the things that are having you move forward with that. So
yeah. And the other thing I'll just add is, what a lot of people today are doing is, in companies, we're saying, here's the project, here's the timeline. And, some of these projects and things that people do might have a 4, 5, 6 week timeline, or, a long timeline. And although there are checkpoints for that, the problem is if that gets off course, even 1 degree or 2 degrees, as we know, when we're going, the longer that timeline is, the more difficult it is to recover. And then we also don't understand what were the reasons that happened. What this tool does is brings it back to, on a daily basis, this is what we need to be focused on, and this is what we need to be doing. And yes, there may be times when that needs to ebb and flow based on the project timeline, but it really helps people and management and everyone on the team really stay focused on, we're going off course 1 degree here, let's try to get that back right away, versus waiting for 6 weeks or whenever the project, or we're supposed to hit our target at the end of the quarter. We're waiting till the end of March, on January 1st, to really make sure that we're on goal. That is not a good way for people to hit goals. We really need to have almost a daily accountability for that to happen. And that's why this tool has, really been helping so many people feel really, really empowered and successful, and knowing exactly when they're not hitting the running boards the way they should, how we need to get back on track.
Yeah, that is a great distinction, to be able to look at that, because, if you've got a goal that's too far out and you don't have anything before, I mean, as we know, that time can just fly by. I mean, where did this first quarter of the year go, right? And if we're not really doing the things and putting it down there, I mean, I think one of those things about overestimating what you can do in a day, but underestimating what you can do in a week and a month and down the road, and how quickly those things can come up on you. So having a tool like this that can really realistically be able to see, okay, this is our big plan, breaking it down, what does this measurement need to be, and utilizing that point system to be able to help with that. So I know, Robin, our listeners are going to want to have this tool. So how can they get it?
Yeah, so I'd love to offer up some, the tool for free for people that respond to me by just shooting me an email at robin@keystonestrategygroup.com. Just letting me know that you heard about it on your show. And what I'm willing to do is, give them access to the tool and even spend, a few minutes on a strategy call with them that we usually charge people for. But would love to do a strategy call around how this would specifically work in their business and really get them started off on the right point, whether it's for them individually or it's for their team. We can always add other levels of coaching around it. We do a lot of coaching around this, have many other sales tools that we use also, and just coaching tools in helping, anyone at any level really achieve the spa life that they really desire.
Oh, that is wonderful and very generous of you to offer to have people get on your calendar. So listeners, if you're hearing this, I know that Robin's not going to have a lot of spaces here. So you're definitely going to want to be able to, email her, connect with her, and really, look at the years of wisdom that she's looked at. She's gone through way before a lot of the social media and some of the things that are in place here. She's got tried and true systems that have really supported her people in building their relationship. So definitely take advantage of building a relationship with her and her support. So thank you for that. Really,
yeah, you're welcome.
That. Yeah.
You're welcome. And I know that I wasn't offering financial advice to anyone today. And but I just want people to know that my broker dealers, Concord Investment Services, and my compliance people like to have that disclaimer that, I am independent of them and independent of Keystone Strategy Group as far as my financial planning business. So just wanted to kind of state that here at the end, Diane, for, disclaiming that I'm not giving anyone specific financial advice.
Great. Well, that is just a perfect example of how you stay in integrity and you're looking out for your clients and for the people that you are building a relationship with. So I really appreciate that. And also, for people who are tuning in here and they're looking at, what are they talking about with this SpaLife? And, we're just working really hard every single day, but where's that balance that we're having? How is it that we're doing the things that we want to do? And I have a tool for you as well, where you can go to the liferesetquiz.com, where you can have this awareness. It takes 4 minutes to find out what's working for you and what's not. And some of the mindset things that Robin and I have been talking about can support you in utilizing that tool. And for those of you who are either on Facebook or on YouTube, please put in the comments below, what were some of the ahas and the things that really spoke to you and that you want to implement and support. And make sure that you tag in there, both Robin and I, so that we can come back around, connect with you, get to know you, help you move your ball down the court and be able to support you, because this is why we're here. This is why we're connecting with you, is so that we can help you, really do the big things that you want to do and help you really create your spa life. So Robin, I just want to thank you for your time and your wisdom and for being with us here on the show.
Thank you so much, Diane. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for asking me. And you are just a really true mentor, visionary, and true friend to so many people. And all of this information, your podcast and everything that you do are so helpful to so many people. And I just want to thank you because I know all of them are very appreciative of all that you do.
Thank you so much for your generosity of spirit, and I received that. So thank you so much. And for your listeners and everyone that are out there, please continue to connect with us and to reach in and really take these tools to heart. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. See ya.
Bye.